Hello, Madeira artists, and welcome to the Madeira Art Blog. This first lesson is on an artist named Tate Nation. Tate Nation is an artist from Charleston, South Carolina. He is best known for his brightly colored landscape paintings of Charleston. If you look at this painting that he's standing next to now, it is a landscape painting. Paintings that are landscapes tend to be of the land or the water or of things that you see when you look outside. Let's take a look at another painting by this artist. And if you take a look at this one, this painting's really easy to break down in landscape terms. So when we take a look at it, these large objects up front, the front of the painting, are in the foreground or front of the painting. The objects that are back here, they're a little smaller. Those are objects in the middle ground or middle of the painting. And these things that are in the back are called the background of the painting. So when you talk about objects that are in the foreground of the painting, we have the dock, the shrimp, the bucket, the posts, this pelican, and the boat. What's something you notice about all of those things when we look at the things in the foreground versus the middle ground or the background? If you said that they look larger, you are correct. Things in the foreground tend to be much larger than things in the middle or the background. If we move on to the middle ground, we can take a look and we've got the sailboat, some fish, some palm trees, and a little bit of land. And when you look at that, what do you notice about that in comparison to the foreground objects? You said they look smaller. You were correct. They are a little smaller and a little less detailed than the objects in the foreground. If you take a look at this pelican, you can see we've got the line in his beak, we've got his eye. There's a lot of little teeny tiny details that have been put into the foreground of this painting. And then as we get to the middle ground, the fish don't even have eyes anymore. The next section I want you to take a look at is the background. So the background has got these little teeny tiny sailboats, this pelican up in the air, some even further away pelicans because they have even less detail. And these little tiny trees, maybe they're houses, it's kind of hard to tell because they look so far away. One of the ways that an artist makes things look far away is one by putting them in the background, but also by making them smaller and with a lot less detail. So even if you look at these sailboats in the background, they have less detail than the sailboat in the middle ground. Let's take a look at another one of his paintings. So if we take a look at this one, there's a lot going on in this picture, but things in the foreground tend to be large and towards the front. So look how big these flowers are in the foreground of this painting. There are more flowers in this painting, but they're smaller and they start to have less details, which tells me that they are in the middle ground. And even the fronds on this palm tree are much smaller than these big ones. These big ones tell me that they are in the foreground because they're big. Some other tricks that artists use to make things look like they're closer to us and further away is overlapping. If you look at this plant right here, the artist has made it go from the foreground, which kind of ends at this fence, into the middle ground, which means that part of this is going over and into the middle ground. And then we can go from the middle ground into the background, where things are very small and a lot less detailed. This tree right here goes from the middle ground all the way into the background, where things are teeny tiny with much less detail. The last painting I wanted you to take a look at was this one. When you take a look in the foreground, what do you see? If you said houses, you were correct. And what do you notice about the houses in the foreground that maybe seem a little different from things in the middle or the background? If you said that they are larger and more detailed. You are correct again. They also tend to overlap into the middle ground. So the foreground is just this area here. There's a couple of other things that are in the foreground that you might have seen. But if you notice, they do overlap into the middle ground, which helps make the picture a little more interesting to look at. In the middle ground, what do you see? You said ocean waves, sailboats, fish, and a little land. You're correct. And if you notice, again, these things have a little less detail than the houses in the foreground. And then if we go all the way back into the background, take a look at the sailboats and compare them to the ones in the middle ground. If you look, they're starting to have even less detail to make them look even further away. These are just a few tricks that artists use to help show off the space in a painting. So what I want you to do is to think about the landscapes around you. I know a lot of you have been going on walks with your family, and maybe they've been around the neighborhood. Maybe you've gone on hikes where you've seen big, beautiful views of the places we live. And I want you to think about those walks that you've been on. And I want you to create a picture that shows a foreground, a middle ground, and background. And think about how you can use overlapping and size to show the different spaces in your picture.